Our weekly visit from the senior producer for NFL Films and also the co-host of the ESPN NFL Matchup show, one Greg Cosell, joining us to talk Bills Chargers on Sunday. Greg, how was your Thanksgiving? You have a good holiday meal there? You're stuffed?
I didn't overdo it this year. I was pretty proud of myself, so it wasn't too bad. But it was the first Thanksgiving where I did not come into the office, and I can't remember how long. I actually watched tape at home for about 5-6 hours in the morning yesterday, but did not come in the office. It felt kind of good not to do that.
If you're watching 5-6 hours of tape on Thanksgiving at your home, you're a goner.
I know. Well,
you're an absolute
Steve,
goner.
I've been a goner for a long time
You
with this
are a
stuff.
goner.
People who know me know that. I'm a little nuts.
Well, the Bills have got the Chargers coming up. What do you think about this matchup? That by this time of the season, obviously, and the Bills coming off a bye, they're going to be a little healthier without the notable absences. What do you think?
Well, I think the 30,000 feet view, the macro view, is that you have to be careful with this offense, with the Chargers, because Justin Herbert, we can talk in a little more detail, but this offense puts up points. Herbert's been really, really good, and you just can't look at their record and go, oh, they're not a very good team, because they score. And, unless something changes, and you never know, every week is different, Steve, as you know, in the NFL. But just based on track record since Herbert became the starter week 2, this team puts up some points. So, you can't just think that, oh, they're bad and we're going to go in and we're going to beat a bad team, because Buffalo's going to have to score some points.
Yeah.
And then, Greg, it kind of sticks out here, some of the shortcomings they've had in special teams. I mean, 2 weeks ago, it was the main reason that Miami got 14 points on the board rather quickly against them. And last week it persisted. I think it's 3 blocked punts in the last 4 games. But do you see this more as just missed assignments and poor execution, or is there some schematic there that you think they're getting victimized by with respect to the opponent?
Chris, I'm not a special teams expert, so that's a tough question for me to answer, but I will say this. When you're scoring the way they're scoring, special teams and defense are your problem. Because when you score, and I don't know what they're averaging since Herbert became the quarterback, but they do score. They put points on the board. They put enough points on the board to win literally every week. And they don't win every week, obviously. They rarely win. So special teams is a killer. Look, Steve knows this better than I'm not the special teams expert here, but if you're not comfortable with your special teams, then all you're hoping, right, Steve, is they don't make a mistake. You don't have to have big plays. You don't have to have game-changing plays, but you just can't make mistakes.
Yeah, I think the big culture in the NFL right now is that's what it is. As long as you don't make a mistake, it's hard for particularly since they started de-emphasizing like kickoffs and just de-emphasizing field goals and extra points, that kind of thing. As long as you don't make the catastrophic mistake, you're going to be fine. And it's hard. The one thing I think the league is going to, and you'll have teams doing it, is on kickoff more so than punt. But if you can't protect the punter, that's the first special team you put in. That's the one catastrophic thing you have to watch out for every week. But I think more teams, more and more, are leaning on their coverage teams. Teams who score a lot, they cover a lot of kicks, and they're more confident that if they can drop a kickoff inside the 5-yard line, outside the numbers, they're going to get the guy inside the 20. And that's an extra first down that the opposing offense has to get before they can score. So I think more teams are starting to – so kickoffs are making a little bit of a resurgence. I don't know if it'll last, but you're right. Special teams now are about avoiding a catastrophic mistake, not really doing something special.
Yeah, and especially if you have an offense that puts up points. That's the last thing you want to have happen, Chris, is your special teams change the game. And that's unfortunately what's happened. If you're a Chargers fan, that is, obviously. That's what's been happening to them.
What do you make of the Chargers' ability to stretch the field, use the deep passing game? Herbert has been extraordinarily accurate in this area. And now I'm kind of thinking that, it's a 1-2 combination now if Ekeler can come back and play, because now you've got a lot of soft spots and areas underneath where Ekeler really excels after the catch out of the backfield. I mean, that's his bread and butter in there underneath. So if you've got guys stretching the field like they are and Herbert hitting on those plays, I got to believe there are going to be opportunities underneath for Ekeler if he comes back this week.
And, it's really interesting watching this offense. I've watched every game because Herbert's become a must-watch every week. So I've seen every game that he started and in pretty good detail. They don't really have that good an offensive line. That's the interesting thing. They've really struggled at the tackle position this year, yet Herbert's been able to weather that storm, and they do attack down the field. They're a shot play offense. And one thing about Herbert, we're just seeing that touchdown to Mike Williams, which is a really good example. There were two things when he came out of Oregon that had a lot of people potentially concerned, myself included, because I actually watched over his final 2 years in college about 18 games. I was concerned about his sense of anticipation and timing, and his ball placement was not always consistently accurate. Well, the Chargers have done a really good job with the anticipation part, with what they do with their pass game concepts. There's not a lot of pure anticipation throws, but the ball placement has been very good for the most part, much better than it was in college, and particularly, Chris, as you mentioned, on the deep ball. They're a shot play offense. They take shots. I think Tyrone Johnson, what does he have, 3 receptions for about 170 yards, something like that? I mean, they take their shots, and he hits those.
Yeah, the defensive coordinator of the Chargers is a guy who's been a head coach. It's Gus Bradley.
Bradley.
Yeah, so he cut his teeth on the Seahawks and the Seattle Seahawks and their World Championship winning defense. How does this defense compare to that one? Is the philosophy still there? How has he evolved since he was the coordinator for the Seahawks?
You know, it's a great question because to me, and again, you know, I'm not a player, I'm not a coach with knowing every single tweak, but I don't think they're a tactically difficult defense to play against. I think you know what you're going to get. You get a lot of cover 3, you get some split safety. Obviously, every team plays man, they play some cover 1, but I don't view them as a tactically difficult defense to play against. What the question is, can you protect? Because I believe Bosa is back. They have Ingram. I think he's due to play, correct? I know every week it seems like he's on the injury report.
Yeah, he missed practice Wednesday and Thursday, but we don't know. He seems like a question mark, but we'll see.
Yeah, but I mean, I think Bosa is back. So the key is to protect. They're a defense that's built on the ability to rush with 4. They don't blitz a ton. They play the rookie linebacker, Kenneth Murray, who's been up and down a bit in terms of his understanding and recognition, a really high-level athlete, but he's struggled a bit at times. So you kind of know what you're going to get. And I think that from the standpoint of the Bills' offense and their coaching staff and Brian Daboll and what they want to scheme, I think they'll have a very good feel of how to attack this defense, particularly the coverage part.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what about their coverage? Casey Hayward, Michael Davis.
Hayward's nicked up,
yeah,
too.
And, sitting behind them, they've got Tavon Campbell.
Yeah, Campbell's become the slot corner because they traded Desmond King earlier in the year, and he fell out of favor there. Like I said, they play predominantly single high. Adderley is a second-year man. He's the post safety. Jenkins, who played post safety a year ago, has now become the box safety. And I kind of like Jenkins, and Adderley's a very, very good athlete, but they're young players still finding their way. So we'll see who plays opposite Davis if Hayward does not go, because like I said, Campbell has been the slot corner the last 3-4 weeks.
Breaking it down to specific downs in the series, Greg, we know that Keenan Allen leads the league, I think, in third down receptions with 25. So the numbers alone would indicate Herbert's looking for him, and understandably why. But what have you seen from them on third downs, and is it strictly look for Keenan Allen first, and if not, try to make something happen? Like, I'm just curious what you've seen from them on third down, knowing the propensity to go to Allen as much as they have.
Well, they certainly go to Allen, and Allen is such a good route runner. He's in the conversation when you start talking about route runners. You start thinking of Stephon Diggs, you start thinking of Allen, you think of Devontae Adams, guys who are just really, really good route runners. And by the way, the play we just saw was an absolutely ridiculous throw by Justin Herbert. But Allen is so good, and Steve knows exactly what I'm talking about, at playing off the leverage of defenders. And obviously in zones, you look for voids. When you have man, you're trying to set up defenders, particularly on short routes. He runs a lot of slants. He runs a lot of pivot routes, whip routes, the kinds of throws where when it's 3rd and 6, he might only get 8, but that's a first down. And those plays may not make the highlights, but those are the important plays in games. And by the way, that's an area in which Herbert's been very good this year, which a lot of people were uncertain coming out. Like I said, the accuracy was a question mark, but he's made those throws. And Allen is so good on those drive-sustaining kind of routes that are absolutely critical for offenses.
We've seen Justin Herbert use Keenan Allen a lot in the passing game, go to him, his favorite target. Now there's a chance, and we're just going to go with the assumption that maybe Ekeler is going to play. And I've been looking for maybe a comparable around the league, and maybe the best comparable, and I think maybe McCaffrey in Carolina, the way they use Ekeler, because he does everything. They leave him on the field, and maybe the best scenario is the best comparison is the fact they're both hurt. But Ekeler could get back on the field, and how does that change things for them?
Well, it changes things because he's really good as a detached receiver, and they don't have a back since he got hurt who's a detached receiver. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean he's not going to line up in the backfield and run the ball, and he's also very good as an offset back running routes, but he really poses problems for defenses as a detached receiver, meaning split from the formation. And what that does a lot is that gives the quarterback a lot of pre-snap information, because then you'll see how the defense plays that. If for instance, let's say he's detached outside of Keenan Allen, and it's twins to whatever side, and Allen's in the slot and Ekeler's detached. If a corner stays over Ekeler, you probably have a pretty good sense pre-snap you're going to play zone. If they put a linebacker out on him or put a safety out on him, you might have a pretty good sense pre-snap that it's man coverage. And what you're trying to do in this league is give your quarterback as much pre-snap information as possible, because the really good quarterbacks and the really good schemers, and I think Shane Steichen has done a really good job with this offense for the Chargers, the really good ones do that to help their quarterbacks, and that's critical for a quarterback.
A lot of 11 personnel for them, much like the rest of the league, Greg, but with their usage of 12, 21, even a little bit of 22 here and there, do you anticipate that changing at all with Ekeler coming back with respect to the run game?
My guess is because he had a hamstring, right? A bad hamstring.
Torn
injury,
hamstring, yeah.
Again, he'll be back for sure, but I don't know if he's playing 70 snaps.
Yeah, pitch count, right.
I don't think it'll change a whole lot what they do. They've got a lot of players who have become sort of matchup players. We talked about Johnson, who they use at times as a vertical receiver for specific plays. They've got the 6'7", 6'8" tight end Parham, who they've used in the red zone. I think he has 3 or 4 touchdowns on specifically designed plays that they use when they get in the high red zone. So they've got specific players for specific things that they use really well. So, Ekeler's back, but I don't think that will dramatically change their approach to offense.
Okay. Yeah. Let's flip it around to the Buffalo Bills coming off their bye week. They're going to get Mitch Morse back in the lineup. Cody Ford is out of the lineup. We don't know what the starting five are going to look like for the Buffalo Bills. What are your thoughts as to what's your best guess as to how that's going to look?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, look, obviously they've been practicing this week. It's a different world where you're not out there at practice, seeing who's doing what. But we talked about this last week leading into the bye. I'm going to be very, very curious to see what their approach is in this game, to see if they are going to truly try to run the football. And when I say run the football, we know they're not going to run it 40 times. We know that. But I'm just curious to see if it's something that they commit to a little more. No matter how well Josh Allen has played, and I think he's played really, really well, given that he's in his third year, and given what they've asked him to do, I just think it's really hard for any quarterback to have to drop back by choice 40, 45 times every single week. That's just hard to me. We're seeing that even in Seattle, and Russell Wilson's been doing this a long time and is a great player. It's just a tough deal. So I'm just really curious to see where they stand with their run game now that they've had a week of reassessment and reevaluation, where they've studied their team in great detail. They've done all the self-scouting. I'm anxious to see how they come out.
Yeah, I mean, Coach McDermott did say coming out of the bye, they felt they came up with some good answers with respect to their run game. So with that in mind, Greg, I mean, you can look at numbers all you want. I mean, you see that the Chargers are ranked 15th against the run. Is that an accurate figure? And what do you make of their run front?
I think they have a good D line. I think it's the linebacking unit that's a question mark. I mean, I think Kaiser White is out because I think he's on COVID. Uh, so Murray has struggled at times as a rookie. I imagine it'll be Perriman who takes White's spot. He's more of a run defender than an athlete, and so he hasn't played as much because he does not play normally in their nickel, but he probably will play in their nickel. I assume now that White is out. You know, I think I wouldn't be surprised, and this is just me talking, I could be dead wrong. I wouldn't be surprised to see Zach Moss start to get more carries. Because the one thing about Moss, he's certainly not as explosive as Singletary, but I think he's a grinder. I think he's a competitive runner. I think he's the kind of runner that allows you to stay on schedule, stay ahead of the sticks. I just have a sense that he'd be the guy that they might want to feature a little bit more.
As we take our eyes off the Bills-Chargers for a minute and move around the league, what did you think about Tua Tagovailoa getting benched in the Denver game? And then now the Dolphins face the Jets with it seemingly Sam Darnold back in the saddle.
Yeah, again, you know, the Tua thing, I don't have a great response to him getting benched. You know, there's two sides to that, and they both make sense. You know, they're in the playoff hunt. They're theoretically in the division hunt. They're trying to win a football game. On the other hand, you could take the opposite and say, well, the first time that Tua faces adversity, why do you pull him? I understand both. But in that game, Vic Fangio's been doing this a long time, and Tua is a very timing, rhythm-based player. Vic knew that. He took away a lot of the throws that were timing, rhythm-based. He made Tua have to sort of play faster mentally because it was sort of faster physically, really, because he would drop back, hit that back foot, and he couldn't throw the ball. There was nowhere to throw it because they took away those timing throws. So he started to play faster physically, but slower mentally, because he just didn't know where to go. So he struggled in that game. Now, that will probably come with experience, but this was his first game in which, hey, it wasn't quite so simple.
And then an interesting game on the slate is Colts Titans, the rematch from just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Do you see the Titans changing much in light of how the last game went?
I don't think the Titans change a whole lot week to week, certainly on offense. We know they're going to give the ball to Henry. By the way, they did rush for 157 against the Colts in that game, the most the Colts have given up all year. The Titans are going to give the ball to Derrick Henry. That's not a scoop. We know that. The big thing was that Tannehill played much better last week because the Titans are very defined in what they do in the pass game. Much of it works off play action. And Tannehill made some really good secondary throws where he went to secondary receivers because they have staples that everybody knows, and you've got to be able to work off those. So he played well. He'll have to do that again this week. It'll be real interesting because we know DeForest Buckner is going to be out, and he's a man inside.
Yeah.
So we'll see who they play inside. My guess is you'll see Lewis play number 94 a lot inside, and he's had a really good year for them as a rotational D lineman. So he'll probably get a lot more snaps. But we know Tennessee will give the ball to Derrick Henry.
Well, last one I've got for you. I want to ask you about this game that I saw I think it was last Monday night. Or maybe it was Sunday night. I can't remember. The Chiefs-Raiders game.
Yeah.
I thought Derek Carr played as good a game as I've seen him play maybe in his entire career. It was in the loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. I think he was betrayed by some drops in that game. But I thought he could not have played a better game. I haven't heard anybody else say too much about that. And I was wondering if you'd seen film and what you thought of that.
I did. And I think Derek Carr is playing at a pretty high level this year. I think, you know, Gruden's offense, there's a lot of terminology. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot of adjustments. There's a lot of alerts. There's a lot going on. And it's very wordy, and it takes time. And I think Derek Carr is settling in a bit now. He's doing more at the line of scrimmage. He's clearly more comfortable because at its core, Steve, this is an offense that wants to run the ball and create explosive plays off that. They're one of the few teams in the league that plays with 3 wide receivers on less than 50% of their snaps. They're a base personnel offense. And Carr is now getting very comfortable. And I think the whole plan, the whole approach, and how you play within that system. And it takes time. There's a lot of coaches who'll tell you it takes a quarterback 4 years in one system to really become comfortable. And I think you see that a lot. No one wants to talk about that because of social media. Everything has to happen right now. But that's not the way it works.
Yeah. Well, Greg, thanks for the insight as always, not only with this game on Sunday, but on a couple of the other games going on around the league this week. We appreciate it, and we'll catch you on the ESPN NFL Matchup show this weekend. Thanks for the time.
Enjoy the weekend.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend.
All right, that's Greg Cosell, senior producer, NFL Films, and also on the ESPN NFL Matchup show every Saturday and Sunday morning on ESPN and ESPN2.